I don't believe that time is the greatest healer and that I just think you get used to a new normal and you just get used to that. There will always be a void that is left in one's life.
Another spring morning and a very bright, vivacious person with us, just living up to the weather, to the season. Hi, Anuradha. Welcome to the show Unbound.
Hi, Mamtaa. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
The kind of work you've chosen for yourself, Vows for Eternity. Now, these are not the kind of things that you really set out and dream or target or aspire for. How has the making been, and who has Anuradha been in the unfolding and making of where she is today?
Oh, that's a very deep question. I think I am very different as a person to who I was even a decade ago. And I think there has been and I think for me, as we were talking earlier, COVID has really been a very defining point in time, personally and professionally. And it has I've done a lot of reset because there was a time which allowed me to pause and reflect and understand, where do I really want to go? And I think for me, it was that time that has changed so much in my life for the better.
For the better.
And I started Vows for Eternity. You're right. I mean, even when I was in business school, if somebody had said, are you going to start a matchmaking company?
Yeah.
I would have said, hell no. I mean, I never thought about it.
Yeah.
But I think it found me. And I think the best things in life are when they find you. And I got married late by Indian standards more than a decade ago. I was 34 at the time. I wasn't ready for marriage for the longest time. I was commitment phobic. But Vows for Eternity was really born from my own journey.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think when something is born from you, there is a different amount, there's a different intensity, there is a different sense of belonging. It belongs to you as much as you belong to it.
Yeah. But so different. I mean, you do say that love is not enough.
I do.
Right?
I do.
Explain it to me. For a life full of commitment, responsibilities, journeys together, witnessing each other's journey. If love is not enough, then what is?
There is a lot more that goes into a relationship. There is a sense of, like you said, commitment. And that doesn't only come from love. It comes from a very deep respect for each other. A sense of responsibility towards each other, towards family, towards the institution of marriage. Marriage is so fragile in so many ways, and yet it's so integral to us as a culturally as well. But it's there is so much. Two people come together, with the intention of spending a lifetime together. And they grow. Do they grow together? Do they not grow together? Do they grow apart? Same experiences. Does that bring them closer? Does it not?
Oh, yeah.
So there is so much else to it. There is the day-to-day practicalities. The relationship also changes over a period of time.
Absolutely. People change, relationship
People change. It's a stage of life, right?
Yeah.
Two people come together. If they decide to have children, that's a different dynamics in the relationship. And then children grow up, they may fly the nest. That is again a different dynamics. So it's not only love. Love is there, but I think respect, friendship is a very important part of a marriage. And acceptance. Sometimes you may love somebody, but that doesn't stop us from trying to change them.
True.
So acceptance is very important. Because each person should have, in a marriage, I think it's a space where each person should have the freedom and the space to be themselves.
Totally.
It's a lot more than love.
Yeah. While you started Vows for Eternity and you were into an early marriage yourself at that time, if I'm getting the numbers right, like you said, decade into Vows for Eternity and nearly a decade into the marriage. How has one led to the growth or progress of the other? So while you were witnessing your own journey, were you also fueling the same insights back into the work that you were doing with people, or what you were seeing out there with others? Is it something that you were taking as lessons and then implying them in your own marriage too?
I think you're right. It's been parallel tracks and we have both grown together. So I was in London when I met Anand and, got married. I wasn't ready to move. I realized after he got married that I wasn't ready to move to the US. I had always said I'm never moving to the US.
Okay.
When I was younger. And that also taught me that you may have your own plans, but life really has its own plans.
Yeah.
So I remember after we got married, we went to the Maldives for our honeymoon, came back to Delhi. I got on a flight and went back to London, and Anand took a flight and went back to LA. And we said, okay, what next? And I said, I don't know. You tell me. And then it took me 10 months to be ready to move to LA where he was. And for those 8 months, out of the 10, he moved to London.
Okay.
So we could be together. And then when we were in LA for a few years, and then we moved to New York City where we were for many, many years. And that is where, Vows of Eternity was really born. I saw a lot of people close to me going through something very similar. For me, the whole 2 pieces of paper, biodatas, trying to find each other did not work.
Totally.
And so over time, I have grown in my relationship. I have seen a few stages of my relationship, and equally, I've learned from my own experiences, but equally I've learned from experiences of life in general, right?
Yeah.
A decade and a half later, I am a very different person.
Absolutely.
So they've both really helped each other, I guess.
Yeah. Just as how it is, because it's the same person at the end of it, right? So you are whatever you are imbibing. Either you are taking in somewhere and feeding in somewhere, or you're feeding in somewhere and taking it from somewhere. I think it's kind of, that's what is who we are as humans. There's no separation.
True.
Really,
True.
right?
And I think if you listen, and what I do, a lot of that is, when you take the time out to listen to someone and listen to their life journey and life experiences and just listen without any judgment. We do the best that we can at a point in time in any relationship, whether it's being a parent or a child or a sibling or whatever. So I think when you just listen to somebody else's life journey and their experiences and the ups and the downs, the ups never shape us. That's open a bottle of champagne and you're good to go. But it's really the low
downs.
moments that define us.
Yeah.
And so that has been a great source of learning for me. And I feel very blessed and very privileged that people have really opened up about their life journeys with me. And I think it is nothing but a blessing.
Yeah. Relationship has been a theme for you in life. I mean, other than Vows for Eternity, for the first 34 years when you were just observing, witnessing, imbibing, learning, growing, educating yourself, how was life back then? And even at your formative grounds in your family, has that been the core of your upbringing?
So I did psychology for 5 years. And for me, I've always, the depth that there are 2 things that have always been very important to me. Travel, because you understand different cultures, landscapes, and how they really talk to each other. And the other has been just people. That is always, I think the most fascinating thing for me in the world is not AI, and I know that's the buzzword and all of those things, but it really is people. How nuanced we are as human beings, how intrinsically flawed we can be, and how beautiful we can be because of those flaws. Because that's what makes us human.
Absolutely.
So you're absolutely spot on. This is something that is always fascinated me.
So life is by design, or is it by default? What would you say to that?
I don't know, actually. I think I have not always, when I was younger, I was very sure that I've got it all figured out. And this is how I want my life to be. This is what I'm going to be doing. This is what I'm not going to do. This is where I want to live. This is not, I think it was where I felt that I'm in control and life will go the way I want it to go. And today, I think that was being extremely naive. Life said, okay, buddy, if this is what you think you're going to be doing, I'm going to show you who's the boss. Right. And I think so for a while, I didn't know what hit me.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to resist. I was like, hey, this is not what I decided.
Yeah.
So, and then at some point, I made peace with the fact that, life is going to throw certain cards our way. And the only control that we have is to decide how we are going to react to what it is throwing away.
Absolutely.
And then that was, I think, another defining point for me. And it changed me. It got a lot more humility, a lot more, the sense of this greater sense of purpose. And that's when I realized that we are all here to learn something.
Yeah.
And we have to just figure out what we are here to learn. And I started going with the flow. And once I started going with the flow, I think that was another changing point.
It's interesting that while you say vows for eternity, but we know that there's no relationship that exists, that perfectionism, the idea of that perfectionism, that till eternity or till death do us apart. In this the landscape, the world, people, thought, everything has been evolving forever, and it'll continue to do so. With the millennials at hand now, this generation who's so scared to swipe right or left, who's so scared to even be who they are, sometimes because of the judgments, because of the biases or their internal unsureties or insecurities. Do you think it is really vows for eternity, or is it only about one relationship, one thing at a time, and just being sure about that for now?
I think in life, it's all about intent. And I'm a big believer in karma. And I think karma is it is formed not at the action stage, it's formed at the thought stage, which is the intent.
True.
I don't think there is anyone, and yes, divorce is on the rise, and I think that's probably part of what you were referring to. But I think when anybody gets married, any of us get married thinking it's going to be forever. Nobody gets into a marriage saying, I'll see how it goes. I'm going to try it out. Right? So I think the intent is always, this is my forever. And for different reasons, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But that is not the intent when somebody's getting in. Somebody's getting in, it is forever.
Yeah.
So I think that is really where this comes from. And I feel that it doesn't matter millennials or, I think we all want to be with somebody where we feel needed, where we feel heard, where we feel loved. And that is a universal phenomenon.
True. For every living being.
For everyone.
Not only human being, I would say, even a pet, for example, or even a plant in your balcony would want that attention, that care, that love, that, energy of nurturance, so to say. But my question again, referring back to it, in the advent of technology, while you did indicate that you're not such a great believer, but we cannot take away the impact and the role that it is playing in our lives, where, the others' approval or judgment or view of how they are looking at us as a profile, as someone who's on Instagram, as someone who's on Facebook or on a Tinder profile, becomes more important and centric to my being. How do you really, how do you kind of train that mind or sort of help that mind understand that you're so much more beyond?
I don't think it's my job really to train somebody else's mind. I'm trying to still figure myself out. And I think that it is up to us to decide how much control we give somebody else in our life. And if you give the key to your happiness, wherever your happiness might lie, to somebody else, whether it's social media or it's your partner, the moment you give that controlled to somebody else, then you're not in control of your happiness. Somebody else will decide what makes you happy, what does not.
True.
So I'm not a believer of that. I think you have to really decide the boundaries, and you have to decide what is real and what is not real. Those are journeys that I think each of us have to travel alone on.
Coming to the entrepreneur side now, some bit of challenges would have definitely come your way, even while you were creating this idea or germinating or birthing this idea and then being on that journey. What have been your biggest fears and failures?
I come from a business background. My first venture was when I was in school. I started with investing in the stock market, and I was.
While you were in school?
Yes, through our family,
Okay.
investors. But it was. I remember when I was in first year of college, I started my own venture in the garments. Domestically.
Okay.
And I remember getting a call from, I forget, I think it was the Times of India in Lucknow where I was at the time, where they featured me, and there was somebody who wrote in, and a father and a daughter had wanted to speak to me, and saying that they are, at that time, 20 years ago or maybe 25 years ago, that was not very common for women to start their own things. I mean, now entrepreneurship is a buzzword, and there are a lot of people doing that. The ecosystem is supporting it. Families are supporting it. So I think that was, when I spoke to the father and the daughter, and that was very insightful for me, because they said, this is really, the daughter spoke about reading about in the paper, reading about what I was doing inspired her. And so that's really where my journey really started. And then I went into exports, and then I sold that, and then I, exited that, and then I moved to Australia from business school. So this was not my first venture, but certainly, and this has not been my last, but it has certainly, it is, and it continues to be the one closest to my heart.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't think I'm scared as a person. I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, that I think we're risk takers. If we were risk averse, we wouldn't be entrepreneurs.
So you kind of came very close to my question, which is also about the biases or the internal dialogues or things that we fear just because of a limiting belief maybe we have drawn on ourselves, and saying, oh, I'm not sure whether I'll be able to do it, or I'm not sure how this will happen, or I'm not sure about how people will take it or perceive of me, etc. Certain biases that came in your way from external and internal.
So external, I think I have, again, I don't know, maybe it's a flaw, but I have never really given that much importance to somebody externally, anyone, to be able to dictate choices or perception. I've never needed that external validation, and I think this is my life. I make my own choices, and I will live by them. Good, bad, ugly, I will live by them. And that is what has always defined me.
Is this some sort of a thought lineage? Is it coming from the right parenting done? Or
I don't know. I think, my parents have always encouraged me to follow my dreams. And I've always believed, and I'm sure a lot of that credit goes to them, that they've always made me feel secure. They've said, fly, we are here. And I think that has helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I think that sense of stability and that sense of security and
assuredness.
And I think the sense of, you don't know till you don't try.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, and I believe this very strongly, that the only limits that really matter are the ones that you put on yourself.
Totally. What about failures? And I'm sure there must be a few.
No, they've been more than a few. They've been more than a few.
How have you taken them in your stride? And what does it really mean for you?
It reminds me that I have a lot to learn. Every failure reminds me that I don't know as much as I might think I might know sometimes. It keeps me grounded. It also reminds me of, it gives me a space. It tells me that I need to take a step back.
Yeah.
I need to look at what is happening whether it's personal, it's professional, there are all sorts of failures, there are all sorts of challenges. If as an entrepreneur, it can be all consuming. You focus on one thing and then you realize, another part of your life is really taking a little bit of a beating. And then you realize, hey, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
I don't believe in balance because I think it's very, very tough to achieve the work and life balance. I think, the balance is within you so, but failures, I think coming back to failures, I think each failure has really made me introspect, and I have taken each failure, I've broken it down to the lowest common denominator.
Give me any example from your life.
So, anytime, for example, during COVID, that was the point when, up to COVID, there was a lot of, in the build up to the company, we were traditionally a lot into the traditional media in terms of our PR and marketing and all of those things. And and then everything stops, right? But as a company, we did not have, a small team, about 30 odd people globally, Canada, US, London, Dubai, India. But we never had, by the grace of God, we did not lay anybody off. But it was a very challenging time. And we had to reinvent. And that's when our focus shifted a lot from traditional to digital. And all, so in the last 2 years, we built an in-house marketing team. We realized, we identified what was core and what was non-core.
Yeah.
And you don't outsource what is core, and you don't keep in-house what is non-core.
What is non-core.
So we changed the fundamental ways in which the business is really set up. And I think that, and again, that is just one example. But I think at every step, and I've gone back to school in the last year. And that was very refreshing, because again, you're in a class full of 160 people
on the learning side again,
who had their businesses globally, and you realize that, hey, I don't really know enough, and there's so much happening every day. And then again, I went, I'm in a 26-month program, and then I came back and I broke everything down, and we started these changes last year across the company, new divisions, new teams, change of people, all of those things, and it's continuing.
Yeah,
right.
Change is always constant.
And I think change is good. I love change.
How do you adapt to it? What's your one go-to thing? Like, I'm sure a lot of resistance come, a lot of having known how you do and knowing that, I know how it is done, and then just drop it. Like, how do you adapt yourself to that? How do you look at change from that challenge perspective, that, oh my God, there's got to be a rewiring that needs to be done here?
I don't find change as a challenge at all.
Okay.
I love change because it gives me something new.
So risk and change both goes your way.
Yes, I love change. I think once you embrace something, you don't have to struggle with it.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I embrace it fully.
So if you would like to invite someone who is an unstoppable human, or would just want to have a conversation with me, write to me at unboundwithmamtaa@gmail.com. That is unboundwithmamtaa@gmail.com. You can also follow my Instagram @Mamtaa Podcaster. That is MAMTAA Podcaster. I would like to know the role of mother women who have inspired you to be this self-assured being that you are, or has there been play of father and other gender too?
It's been my mother and it's been my husband. Two people who have, my father silently has always supported me as well. But I think two people who are very actively are instrumental in playing a very active role in me getting to where I am, and in me being able to make the choices that I made. If I made certain choices, those were my choices. But the reality is that without the help of my mother and my husband, it is impossible to go out and do things. You always need a solid support structure. Right. And that, like, for example, last year, I was, I'm in Harvard, I'm in business school, and I'd go to Boston for a month. It's like I said, it's a 26-month program.
So this is a residency program?
Yes, it is. So my husband said, he will be fine. He'll hold fort. He'll take care of the children and all of those things.
Along with work?
Along with work. I mean, we do have, I think we're fortunate to have help at home. But I had never left the children for that long. So I asked my mother, will you come? And, and she came over. And our parents are not getting younger. But she was there on the next flight. And that was it. But the support, the unconditional love is, without that, nothing moves.
And it's very nice that you say that, and you say that so, frankly and candidly, because we think कुछ बनने में सपोर्ट चाहिए तो समझ आता है, तुम्हें कॉलेज जाने में सपोर्ट चाहिए, फर्स्ट जॉब के लिए सपोर्ट चाहिए, ठीक है, मदर बनने के लिए भी सपोर्ट चाहिए, बट एक्चुअली दैट सपोर्ट इज अ फॉरएवर थिंग. यू रियली कांट मूव बियॉन्ड योर टेरिटरी इफ यू आर ड्रीमिंग बिग, इफ यू आर ड्रीमिंग समथिंग डिफरेंट. At every level you would need that support. Today you may be, in your 40s you need that support. Even in 50s you will need that support. Even in 60s you will need that support, right? So even understanding and decoding it in yourself and then asking for it. Sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to ask.
Yeah, again, that's not, it's
doesn't come easy.
It's not difficult either. Because I think it's not you really are who you are with the help of a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Not only in your personal life, but even in your professional life. You cannot truly create something.
Totally.
I might have a vision for something. I'm working on something which is on a larger scale. But you can have a vision. But in the end, you're only as good as your team. Your team has to believe in what you are trying to create, and they have to support you. So it's not only limited to personal. Any interpersonal relationship is dependent on being there for each other. And it's a two-way street.
Your mom's been a working one. I would just like to know a little bit about your mom, like her life, and how has she reared you up? Has she been a working parent?
No, she hasn't. Okay. She hasn't worked. But I think she...
How many siblings are you?
It's me. I had a younger sister who passed away many years ago. So it's me. But I think growing up with two daughters, I don't think I ever felt my parents, just never... that was just, everything was there for, depending on your capability, your interest, your capacity, your willingness for adventure. I think my love for adventure
comes from mom.
From my mom. My love to be able to be grounded comes from my mom. I think my love for believing in myself comes from my mom, because in the lowest of moments, there's not been a single time when my mother has not stood by me. And she's the one person who's always believed, I'm here. I'm here. It'll be all okay. That's all I needed.
Wow. And sometimes that is just so enough.
It is so enough.
Getting into, again, an area of work which is so people-driven, people-centric, impacting their lives. Have you actually seen many perfect marriages around you?
Depends on what the definition of perfect marriage is. But that's also, for me, my personal opinion is that as human beings, we are all flawed. so I struggle to understand how when two flawed people come together, it can be perfect.
How do they expect perfection?
Right? It's doubly flawed. But I think so. I don't think
their flaws complement each other.
So I think the way I look at marriage is two people who come together where with different strengths.
Yeah.
Imagine a team where both people have the same strength.
Yeah.
It's a very lopsided team.
Yeah.
So I think the different strengths is really important. And that's why I said for me, love is not only enough. It's about embracing each other. And there, everybody will have certain hotspots, certain things that are, you have to
Touch
know
me
that.
not.
Yes, you have to know certain things
Yeah.
about your partner that are, that and respect that.
Decode it for me. To in pursuit of happiness in a marriage, what is, if at all, if not perfectionism, but what is the code that, okay, do this, do that, do not do this, do not do that? Are there any checklists, like few things, yes, do's, don'ts, that you've sort of defined it out by now, mapped it out, looking at so many people?
No, I wish I had, but I haven't, because I think that, in a relationship, only those two people know what works for them and what doesn't, and there's no cookie cutter solution. So I think the couple of general things that I can really say, I think that it's very important in a relationship, in a marriage, to truly lean on each other. There'll be a lot of noise all around you, always.
Especially Indian marriage.
Always. But I think you have to really, I remember Anand once said to me that, I think I was upset about something, and a new marriage, a lot of expectations and things like that. And from both sides, the advice is coming galore. And he said, Anu, remember this. At the end, it's just you and me.
Wow.
So as long as we have each other, we are backing each other, everything else is noise.
I think that said in an early marriage is such a reaffirmation. And I think that's where we go wrong, because we are just trying to fix it, that let it look perfect, it should be good for them, it should be good for them, for this one. And if you could really have that insight, I mean, Anant is really matured and evolved.
He is. A lot of my maturity today that I'm sitting here and, sort of sharing with you, I think a lot of that comes from him.
I wish to have both of you on that episode now.
He's really rock solid. So I can't take the credit for most of these things.
Yeah.
I have evolved and learned a lot from him over time.
Tell me something about your kids and how is motherhood keeping you, really?
Since I was very little, I've always wanted to be a mother, and that has always been a very important part for me. And I would always visualize ringing the doorbell and the door opening and my kids running to me, and I just scoop them up. And again, I am so blessed that I am living that dream.
Yeah.
And so I have twins, a boy and a girl, Meher and Ishan, who are 7. And they truly give that meaning, that sense of, this sense of purpose comes from many things in one's life.
Yeah.
And they give a lot of that sense of purpose to me. And again, just that running to me, mama, just sitting, I love the time that I spend with them. And it has taught me so much about myself.
Yes.
It has taught me about the things that I did not realize I was and which I did not like.
Yeah.
As I got aware of
Yes.
it. And I realized how, when you look at life through their eyes, how different that is, and how I'm in awe of how children look at life and the beauty that they see. And that has actually helped me get, again, change of perspective.
Yeah.
So that has been
made you a better human.
I think being a mother has definitely made me a much better human being than I ever was.
But see, a lot of times we are on that mom's guilt. I also have 2 sons, and when you have to prioritize, like we were just talking earlier, that okay, this does not come in my list of priority right now, whether I like it or I don't. I don't want to say that work is coming in the way, but work is where I need to be right now. How do you deal with that? I don't know if I were to really call it a guilt, but those feelings, those emotions, how do you sort of balance yourself and make a way through them?
I allow myself to feel them,
Yeah.
and then I let them pass.
Yeah.
Because, and then the other thing I do is I talk to them.
Yeah.
So,
Because so many times women do not want to grow because of that. They want to get, they choose to get stuck in these guilts.
I think we all have our own journeys, and we all make our own choices, and and people will have different perceptions about things. I remember when we were in India and the children were very little, there were times when I would travel. I traveled in India, outside India, and sometimes I heard that the children are really small, they really need their mother and all. And I said, well, nobody would say this if Anand was traveling.
True.
Right? And once I was very upset, and I spoke to Anand about it. He said, you know what? You have to follow your heart. You have to do what feels right to you. And I think that I have always lived life, and at the end of the day, I'm only answerable to myself.
Yeah.
If I feel that I'm fine, I've not done anything wrong.
You are not judging yourself so long.
Yes, because life is so much simpler. You are only answerable to yourself. So as long as you can say, you're fine. You can, there will always be moments of guilt.
Yes.
There are always moments of, when I was even coming on this trip, and they were like, for 2 days before I was leaving, they were like, Mama, they were like stuck to me, clingy.
Yeah.
But I explained to them, I said, I would not have gone if I didn't have to. But when you take something, when you take the responsibility of something, you must follow through.
Yeah.
And they listened quietly without any comment. I don't know whether that was because they didn't understand what I'm saying, but I think they see it in your eyes. They can read a lot more than you give them credit for.
Absolutely. They're very, very perceptible and intelligent humans. I mean, much more than what we can sense into, because I think we at some point have become very numb to our own selves, and they are very cued in because that's their life force. And that's so beautifully said. I mean, literally, I really wish that women do take a lot of inspiration. Men, women, everyone who's watching, do take that inspiration. Do not fall in that, pot of self judgment, hatred, or apology, and do pursue their dreams.
I have to say this, that I'm a very, very flawed individual, right? But I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but there's no load of making it perfect either, right?
No, I am who I am.
Yeah.
If I was more evolved, or if I was less flawed, I don't think about those things, right? I'm just very flawed, and I don't use it as a excuse. But I don't believe in perfection when it comes to human beings, because then we would be less than. A perfect human being is less than human. That's what my sense is. I think the beauty is in the, when you look at something, it has little cracks and whatever. It tells you about the experiences that we've had. So I think our journeys, right? So they're reminders of those journeys, the hurt that we've faced at time, the heartache that we've had, the fears, the anguish, the anger, the insecurities, the anxiety. And that is what makes us who we are. So I think it's about being proud, owning who you are.
So, of course, I mean, you do come out someone who's so grounded, so powerful, and so resurrected in her own being. One question, something that really broke you in life, and how did you emerge from that? Any relationship or any circumstance?
I think what really broke me in my life was when my sister passed away.
Yeah.
She was 21, it was doctor negligence. And I think that is something that I think that was another turning point.
Yeah.
And
how old were you? Like, how apart were you?
We were 5.5 years apart.
Okay.
And I remember I was in Melbourne Business School. I was doing my MBA.
So you are the older one?
I'm the older one.
Okay.
So, it was a tough, very, very tough time. And and my mother said to me, for a mother to lose a child, I remember for those 12 days, she did not step out of the hospital. And we did everything that we could have. But,
if you're comfortable telling what really happened.
Yeah, that's a longer story. But I think, I think so and then my mother said to me, you need to get back to school. And I said, no, I want to be here with you. She said, no, you have a commitment to your school. You've started something. You have taken something on. You need to go and finish it. I will be okay. And I remember, to me, what really stands out is, that as you have the ceremonies and things after. But
the rituals.
I did not have, my mother stood there silently. The sense of grief and the sense of grace that I saw at the same time, I was, it's just redefined. Again, there have been so many milestones in my life that have redefined things. And it is, about how we choose to, the grace, dignity, commitment, loyalty, love, respect, how important these things are. And so that truly was, I think, the
breaking point.
Was really a very, very low time for me for a very, very long time.
How did you deal with your grief?
I didn't deal with it well. I ran away, in a way. The plan was always to go study, come back, because life here was very comfortable. And but I just could not get back. I'm not proud of it. But that was it. I came back to India and I couldn't deal with it. I'm not very good when it comes to dealing with people I love very much when they are sick or when they are sick, I guess, So I'm not very good at that. So I think I didn't deal with it. I just ran away and I couldn't bear to be here.
Has it kind of left a hole in the soul, or are you on your way to kind of moving over it or moving with it?
I just think I think there are so many of us who experience loss in very many different ways. And I think that I don't believe that time is the greatest healer and that I just think you get used to a new normal. And you just get used to that. There will always be a void that is left in one's life. And that goes for anybody who's experienced loss of some sort.
Why I just delved into this a little more was we've actually had a grief coach, and she calls herself Grief Ally. Her name is Ali Bird. She's one of the authors from Canada, and she's actually done a complete episode with us on dealing with grief. And I would highly recommend, if sometime you can take time out and take a look at that.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think these things, again, it's so much a part of being who we are, humans, but we don't want to face it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to acknowledge it. And we definitely don't want to deal with it. We want to just something else to take over. We just make space and then we are like, okay, please take me away.
Yes.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might just bring up another new perspective.
Absolutely. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. So now I think we are pretty much at the end in the last leg of our show. This is my personal round, which I called like a rapid reflex round. It's a quick volley of questions, which I've been doing though, but this time you don't have too much time to think.
Okay.
So here we go. One thing you would like to tell your 16-year-old self?
Just that to live, to be less serious, just to live.
Right. One thing that you do, like as a must-have, a ritual, first thing in the morning?
I think I have my thyroid medicine as the first
Okay.
have in my ritual. But
All right. Complete this sentence for me. Kids to you are.
love,
Love to you is.
acceptance,
Life to you is.
love,
Joy to you is.
relationships,
Travel to you is.
wonder,
Relationships to you is or are.
learning.
One thing which is kind of a last thing that you do as you wrap your day.
I read a story book to my children, and I hold them very, very close. And I tuck them into bed.
Your favorite author?
You know, I've been reading a lot of books on business and philosophy and all of that. So I don't have a favorite author. It's just more philosophies that I look at.
Okay. Your life's biggest philosophy is?
The only limits that really matter are what you set on yourself. And the only person you're answerable to is yourself.
One message that you'd like to give to your mother?
Mom, I wish I could be more like you.
Oh, all hearts. One thing you'd like to say to Anand?
Anand, I couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah. Family to you is?
My space.
And marriage. How do you sum up the institution of marriage?
Marriage to me is evolving. It's made me realize that home is not a place, but it's a person.
Wow. How beautiful is that? Which was my next question, that home to you is those people who make that family and
Correct.
marriage.
Correct. You can be in the best place in the world, and
Yeah.
if you are by yourself, it really doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
And you're with the right person, and then you could be in the shack in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
and it feels complete.
totally. Never have you ever?
Learned how to swim.
Oh, not yet. You'll do it with your kids, I'm sure.
I am actually learning how to
Learning
swim
it.
with my kids. So we are in the same pool with different
Splash
teachers.
pool.
Yes, and they are at a higher level than I am. So
Already.
I'm trying to catch up. They're like, "Mama, could you swim to the to the base of the pool and pick up that the hoop?" And I said I couldn't do it.
How sweet is that? One thing that summarizes Anuradha in this lifetime.
A seeker.
Food for you is?
Opportunity to, it's a means to just spend time, with somebody.
Yeah. And one Zen spot on this planet, one spot which kind of refreshes you, rejuvenates you, you walk in a certain space of mind and you always walk out thrilled, happy, joyous, satisfied, peaceful. What is that Zen spot?
Ladakh.
And your favorite travel destination on this earth, on this planet?
Again, there are certain things that have really impacted me. I think the trip to Israel, to Jerusalem was one of those. I think Egypt was one of those. So there've been many. Greece, I love.
Yeah.
So there've been many. Over every year, we take a month off as a family.
Okay.
And we explore one part of the world. Last year, for example, we went to Portugal. We spent a month there, traveled the length and breadth of the country, and spent a lot of time together. And it was we do that off the beaten track places.
One last, of course not the least, thing that you would want to say to the women of today, to the women entrepreneurs, to the mothers of today who are on their entrepreneurial journey.
Believe in yourself, even sometimes when nobody else does, and follow your dreams. Very often we give our dreams up, and that's very high price to pay. Follow your dreams, and perfection is a very overrated concept. Do the best you can, and then just let it be.
One of my personal favorite takeaway from today's episode is when you said that if we are trying too hard to be perfect, like if you in the human journey, then we are anyway demeaning the humanism or humanity. And I think that's so true. Let's lose that pursuit of happiness with perfection. I think we are just perfect the way we are, just the way that you have come today, totally unbound on this show. Thank you for sharing your journey, your purpose, your joy with us. It was an amazing, amazing conversation. Thanks, Anuradha.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. It was wonderful talking to you, Mamtaa.
Yeah. Let's keep unbounding together. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. And for all the episodes, you can come back to Unbound with Mamtaa, now available on 20 plus audio streaming platforms: Spotify, Amazon, Gaana, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you get your audio. We are also available on YouTube at the Boss Hub channel. So keep unbounding together.